host Eric, and I thought I'd discuss this Charlie Kirk thing. I'm inclined to do so because I got this rather erudite comment from Stephanie Bryan Tunney. A man was murdered for holding a public debate session where anyone could ask him questions and he'd answer a free and open discourse. What this nation is founded on, free speech and using words to communicate. A husband and father and patriot was murdered. Violence is not a way to respond. Words are, much less murder is in no way to respond. Pure evil. I agree with this person entirely. This Stephanie Bryan Tunney. But I guess I'm a little bit motivated by the currentness of the topic as well. So you could say I'm being exploitative of a tragedy or something. By and large, I don't like to talk about politics because there are so few people who can talk about politics sanely. Like, I was really struck the other night. Somebody was around the channel and they were arguing a vegan position, which is fine. But when I pointed out that an environmentalist might argue, not that this would be determinant or anything, but they might argue that chicken and tilapia should be eaten because that's the most bang for your environmental buck. In other words, they're the most environmentally friendly way to feed a bunch of people. But this individual really didn't want that. He didn't like that. And the thing is, it wasn't even a rebuttal to what he was saying. He can still be vegan, still position it as some sort of moral obligation to animals, and accept that that means some some environmental consequences that are less than optimal. If he were magic, snap of the finger, change the world, make it all vegan, he would have to be sacrificing a slightly more optimal solution that involved chicken and tilapia. But this person did not want to accept that what I was saying was true about your primary protein sources there, the way the human beings digest stuff, etc. We can just get a lot more bang from our buck from animal protein. And chickens and tilapia have a low enough environmental impact that it's actually better to raise that and feed people that than it is vegetables for the environment. Norman Price, hi, yo, hi, hi, hi. Kiera, who do you think the patsy will be? I don't know. I'm assuming it probably is some actual lone gunman type, right? It's hard to imagine it's a secretive, you know, shadow government conspiracy kind of a thing because just look at the state of affairs politically that we're engaged in right now. Trump was shot at when he was campaigning. How high are you right now, Pops? How high am I? Not high enough. Hey, Nick. Yeah, I don't even know who the guy was. Don't know anything about him. But it's a national disgrace that things like that happen. How you been, Nick? Long time no see. It's an absolute national disgrace that people with ideas and solutions potentially. I don't. Like I said, I don't know anything about the guy. just that he's purportedly a conservative pundit of some sort, or advocate for conservative politics. It made me think, what are they going to say, like, about me when they put a little thing in the side of me? I'm not conservative. I'm not liberal. I'm not libertarian. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm a correctist. I'm correct about every specific policy matter. And, it's true that that is a problem. The people who are good at being heard, having a big platform and a big voice, and it be influencing people, are not the same people as the correct people. I'm sure some classless Democrats are celebrating, but I'm confident the vast majority of the populace is appalled, as well we all should be. But it's true that, the state of affairs politically in the country has become so filled with animosity and just spite and bile that that you're going to find portions of the Democratic voting base celebrating something like this. You equivalently find portions of the conservative voting base celebrating an equivalent thing. Yeah, it sucks that partisanship has gotten people so extreme that they forget we're on the same team. I'm sure there are individuals, Winston's mom, who are celebrating, but this is not the worst thing we could possibly do is politicize this, right? This is some horrible person who chose violence. The fact that that person probably opposed this guy's politics is missing the point entirely. Plenty of people can oppose his politics and have nowhere near doing anything crazy. So this is not an opportunity to condemn those murderous Democrats, for example, and it's not an opportunity to say, therefore, all of the things that Charlie Kirk said must be correct. It's an opportunity for us to acknowledge that this is a national disgrace. It's an abject failure of the public sphere to do the political discourse that needs to be done. Yes, you can find plenty of self-proclaimed leftists, I'm sure, who aren't grokking the reality of things, right? And are being spiteful and shitty. That's not a condemnation of every Democrat or Democrats in general. I condemn you all. I condemn every last one of you partisan fucks. I don't care what side you're on. Yes, I could find a compilation of people celebrating um, Puff Diddy's release, right? I could find shit tons of people celebrating his release, saying free Diddy and stuff. And guess what else I could do? I could find a bunch of people who celebrate Diddy's release. I could just section off all the white people and say, look, black people love the fact that Diddy's released. Anybody can do that kind of shoddy journalism. It's not even journalism. It's giving people who don't deserve a platform recognition. It's like, Well, it's pretty straightforward what the solution is. The solution has a first name, it's ERIC. And the solution has a second name, it's STRAUSS. But the solution is very underpowered. That's why I'm speaking to you 10 people here who are the smartest people in the internet because you're here listening to me and you still don't agree with me. So, being right's a pretty weak weapon. But I do think that people get that I'm reasonable and that I want what's best for the country and that every candidate who runs should have at least those qualities, right? A thorough understanding of civics, a belief in the institutions and habits of our citizen democracy, and a determination to be reasonable about things, to deal with policy issues one at a time, to not play wedge issue, rabble rouse. Wedge issue rabble rouse has never done anybody one bit of good. Look, the thing is, all of us, everyone in America should be appalled and disgusted. There may be individuals who aren't, but those individuals belong to just one group, shitbags. Okay? It's an equal opportunity group, includes shitbags of all colors, creeds, and whatever. And it is, well, rabble rousing does more than make people empower money. The reason rabble rousing makes money, forget about making money, the reason rabble rousing works and produces shitty candidates and horrible electorate and etc. is because people don't want to be reasonable. Being reasonable is scary and hard. What's the alternative? Demonize your boogeyman group and blame everything on them. That way you don't have to bring any solutions to the table. You're just complaining, aka whining, and you're whining about a boogeyman that does not exist. There is no monolithic group that you hate that's wrong. Sure, you will hear little chambers of wrongness echoing among themselves, but they don't represent some grand movement. Well, I'm not scared to use my free speech in public, and I will continue to do that sort of thing. I do it now on YouTube, but should I find myself positioned to actually run for president, and I am moving through the steps, I'm getting my teeth fixed. That was kind of step number one. And Hi Eric, if I somehow make my way up the political ladder, will you provide cover for my old embarrassing videos on here? Oh, sure. As a general rule, I take down any video anybody asks me to take down. Although I didn't do that for Chloe. She wanted me to go through all of the videos that she was in and delete them. It's like, fuck off. Basically, bitch, you photobombed all my videos and now you're saying delete them. I think there's be plenty of people who will feel emboldened to do debate publicly. But the thing is, I'm not interested, especially in debating, right? What I have already at my disposal are the correct positions on all the various policy matters. I'm happy to explain why they're correct. If somebody has a cogent negation to what I'm saying and they want to run it. I'm happy to win it in the debate, but I'm not interested in being a YouTube debater. It's like nothing in the world could be. It's it's just it's such gutter trash. Who is Charlie Kirk and why he's dead? Because somebody assassinated him. Because he was expressing ideas they didn't like. Like, what is this? Fucking ISIS? Well, I'm perfectly capable of having a real political debate, but the debate just has to be done according to my rules. You have to debate either a plan, skedaddle. I'm going to see if I can save this stupid mouse. You need to either debate a plan or a resolution. One person has to be affirmative, one person has to be negation. Both parties need to have time to do speeches, and both parties need to have time to ask questions and have them answered. That's the rules. That's the minimum you need to have an actual debate. And there's no reason we can't have actual debates, right? Except for the fact that we're all been conditioned to just the lowest kind of bullshit imaginable. There you are. Oh. I'm never going to get this thing. I'm never going to get this thing. I don't have a problem with political parties. I have a problem with the way political parties have jettisoned reasonable people in order to roil up their fucking idiotic bases. And that's the thing. How successfully am I ever going to get elected president when my basic position is most people who vote are idiots and shouldn't vote? I mean, my express position will be, if you're not going to vote for me, don't vote at all. Because obviously you don't know what the fuck you're doing. That's not something that's going to endear you to a lot of voters, probably. But that's my position on it. Most people should not vote. Certainly, all these passionate people need to stay the fuck away. We don't need your passion, right? Your arbitrary bullshit. Like, what is up with these fucking, is it RFK or whatever? What is this anti-vaccine shit? Of course, another one of the, oh, thanks, SB Uni. Another one of the unanticipated harms of pretending of this global, like, na about the COVID vaccine, right? That it's a vaccine. Of course, one of the unintended consequences is when you bullshittedly claim something is a vaccine that does not prevent people from getting the disease, all of a sudden you undermine the credibility further of vaccines in the minds of these crazy people who think vaccines are bad. Obviously, vaccines are fantastic. They prevent you from getting diseases. In contrast, the COVID shot was not a vaccine. So you just feed ammunition to these morons who are like, oh, well, let's get rid of measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine too, because after all, COVID vaccine was bullshit. Therefore, all vaccines are bullshit. You cannot empower those idiots with bullshit. Of course, nobody should ever refer to the COVID shot as a vaccine ever again in a million years, because that thing did not vaccinate anybody for shit. It did not prevent people from getting COVID. So let's just put that to bed right now. And so it's like you've got people who are doing politics by passion. You've got RFK who's passionately just suspicious of scientific authority or something. So much so that he doesn't believe in vaccines. I mean, what is this? The fucking Dark Ages? You've got people like Ellen DeGeneres, who is a complete scumbag, leaves the country because everybody knows she's a scumbag, and claims it's because Trump's in power. Trump is not a good president. Let's not fool ourselves, okay? Trump is a terrible president. The deportations are awful. Ridiculous. The tariffs are pointless and stupid. Why in the world is he antagonizing like every country in the world except Russia of all places? His relationship with the Ukraine Russia thing is a fucking catastrophe. But but a reasonable person assesses things like this. He is orders of magnitude less bad than George W. Bush was. And he is substantially less bad than Obama was because both of those two presidents made huge clusterfucks of messes. Trump's arbitrary decrees can just be arbitrarily decreed away next time. That's the nice thing when you have a president who doesn't do things by legislature, then he can just presidentially decree them away next time. Next president. He's only got part of a term left, and he's not, you know, he's doing nothing remotely as catastrophically bad as the Iraq invasion. Nothing remotely as bad as Obamacare, which is which is the worst thing it could possibly be, right? It was pitched by conservatives, presumably as an individual mandate to get catastrophic healthcare coverage, like liability insurance for your car, right? That way, you pay all your healthcare costs out of pocket, but if you get cancer, then the health insurance kicks in after your $10,000 deductibles used up or whatever. That makes sense. It's still unconstitutional, but it makes sense as a mechanized way to deal with the problem of quote unquote free riders, people with no insurance who go to emergency rooms and such, right? Which was the impetus for the bill in the first place, presumably, along with getting people coverage for pre-existing conditions, right? So instead of doing it smart, like I just described it, with catastrophic healthcare coverage, this bill ballooned, and so now everybody's mandated to have all this preventative care and all these checkups and all this other unnecessary medical care to drive up the cost endlessly because, of course, nobody at the doctor's office cares how much they charge because the insurance company is paying for it. So everything gets ever more expensive. We've codified an insurance middleman into the worst healthcare setup in the world. Except mine's fine. I don't have health insurance. I pay my medical care out of pocket, save money in the process, and actually can hold my doctor accountable. I'm paying you good money. You need to do what I say, you know? That's sanity. Trying to remove market forces from healthcare is a terrible idea. People need to use medical care when they need medical care, not go in for a bunch of checkups and preventative shit. Okay? We are not here to spend all of our time checking to make sure we're okay. You're fine. And it's like you get health insurance involved, you get a situation like Rachel. My wife, Rachel, has bipolar mania. Instead of treating her bipolar mania with a proper combination of drugs, which makes her bang, sane as a whistle, and no sign of mental illness whatsoever, they put her on the wrong meds, kept her coming back for 10 years for group therapy and Alcoholics Anonymous and shit, stuff she had absolutely no need for. They treated her for cannabis addiction. Well, obviously, then Eric came around and put their foot up their fucking asses and let it straight for them. Hired a private psychiatrist, paid out of pocket. She was fixed in 2 visits, completely cured after 10 years of healthcare funded bullshit. healthcare funded agency restricting pseudo police state bullshit. So, yeah, Obamacare was an absolute disaster. Yeah, the Gulf War was an absolute fucking disaster. The Arab Spring. Bush needed to read his de Tocqueville. Alexis de Tocqueville explains you cannot just impose democracy on something. He explained this way back in the day, like in the late 1700s, early 1800s, maybe. I don't know. Maybe mid 1800s. I'm not sure. Somewhere in there, okay? Where he explained you have to start, like the processes start as independent city states. These things can join into larger states. And democracy requires both habits and institutions. There has to be the cultural habit of accountability forums like courts and shit. There has to be a cultural expectation that because of differing religious beliefs, everybody's going to agree that the law shall be dealt with secularly. This is just sanity. But of course, you get none of that in the Arab world with these radicalized Islamic populations. Even the moderates are radicalized. You've got 80% of the country of Egypt protesting, voting in favor of getting somebody deported from the US to be put to death for a blasphemous film. That's called pre-Enlightenment thinking, and it's no damn good. I've been diligently avoiding. So obviously democracy isn't going to take root in the Middle East. I mean, obviously. And regardless, it's not our problem. We're just going to create a bunch of backlash. And why are we invading a country that didn't do anything? Oh, because they might have nuclear weapons? The flimsiness of these justifications. If people cared about process legitimacy, this kind of bullshit wouldn't happen. What the fuck does this have to do with your prompt? My prompt? I must be one of those degenerates I've heard about. What does it have to do with your prompt? You mean the title? Well, it has lots to do with the title. By and large, I have avoided talking about politics, thinking about politics, etc. for a long time. Just because I know it makes me upset and I don't want to even engage the topics until I'm ready to do something about it. But what happened tonight is we have an example of somebody who was executed for speaking their political opinions. My political opinions are not just political opinions. These are the correct positions to have on the respective political issues that I'm articulating. They're neither conservative nor liberal, nor libertarian, nor anything else. They are simply issue-specific correct positions. Genuine question. So what was in the COVID shot if it didn't help with COVID? Well, it was a failed attempt to make a vaccine. We knew in advance that you couldn't really make a vaccine for COVID because it was a coronavirus. Coronaviruses you can't make a vaccine for. But some scientists had a novel idea. Hey, let's try to get an mRNA kind of delivery system. I think that's what it's called. That is novel and that this might actually work. So good. They tried to do that. It didn't work. Where did the bad thing happen? When they pretended that it did. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment. That's a prudent deal. It's rational. Well, I mean, the thing is this. Do you want to empower the strongest people in society to be able to physically overpower, rob, rape, do whatever to the less physically powerful members of society? I'm not a super great fighter, but I should still be able to defend myself, right? I think Charlie Kirk would agree with it still from beyond the grave. We can't make policy decisions on impacts, right? We have to look at legitimacy. The Constitution is very clear on the matter. And we live in a constitutional democracy where we should respect that. We've already constrained individual rights to own a variety of different kinds of military arms to a great deal, and I don't think that's necessarily bad, because I don't think my neighbor needs a nuclear weapon. That doesn't mean Charlie Kirk was wrong about anything, about the Second Amendment. I'm not a gun nut at all. I inherited a rifle. I do have one, but I never shoot it or anything. I don't care about guns. Nevertheless, I respect my neighbors and their right to have guns and go off and shoot them in the wilderness. I hear gunshots a lot around here because we live between two national forests, and Sierra National Forest, and then this area over here, you can shoot all you want. People go turkey hunting and stuff. It's called freedom. You know? It's called freedom. The point is, it doesn't matter what was in the COVID shot. The COVID shot was not some conspiracy to get you to take something bad. It just was a failed attempt at a novel approach to vaccinating a coronavirus. I said in the beginning, long before they developed it, that it was going to fail. I said that the lockdowns were also going to fail. Who gives you that freedom? Well, we enjoy that freedom as a constitutionally protected right in the United States. If you're asking, is gun ownership a natural right? Well, in general, ownership is a natural right, yeah. But that doesn't mean that there aren't any qualifications to that, and etc. What about the people who get adverse reactions, though? Sure, we should be allowed to see the ingredients. It's hard to say whether people get adverse reactions from the shots or not. People are very prone to psychosomatic stuff when you get something new and scary like that, you know. Who grants you rights? A person is born with rights, but they're limited until they have their full agency. Rights, people get rights wrong, okay? People think that rights are this thing, this physicality or something that you, I don't know. Rights is a term we use to describe something that confers a duty onto another. So there's a great definition of a right for you, because you can always determine whether something qualifies as a right, okay? Something that confers a duty onto another. Universal rights, or natural rights, human rights, they confer a universal duty of non-interference. And positive rights, we use that term to refer to the right to, like, for example, I go through McDonald's, I go through the first window and I pay my money. I then have the positive right to my food at the second window, because my paying McDonald's has conferred a duty onto them. So we do have these concepts, and we do actually exist in accordance with them. So it's important that we have precise words to describe what we're talking about. The question is, in light of all these school shootings and general shootings, of the regulations you say should be in place gone far enough in your estimation? The federal government has passed myriad gun control legislation. And despite that, we still have shootings. As far as mass shootings and stuff, I'm not worried about getting shot in a mass shooting. It's a very low likelihood way to die. If we evaluated things by the likelihood for them to be involved in death and tried to restrict people's access to it, why, what in the world am I doing with this lighter and cans of gasoline in my car, I could start a big fire. I swear, if they invented fire today, nobody would be allowed to use it except the military. We have to understand that at the end of the day, we have individual human beings behaving as individual human beings will, right? It's up to all of us to make sure that the people around us aren't so miserable and fucked up that they do something like that, you know? Keeping in mind, if they didn't have guns, there are plenty of other ways to cause mass casualties. People run into a crowd with their car. It's like, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to eliminate all possible ways of acting out in that fashion? It's never going to happen. And it's a fool's errand, right? We acknowledge that there are risks in a free society where individuals are empowered to do as they wish. I have a chainsaw, for example. I could go cutting down trees and have them fall on people's houses. Who knows how long my rampage would go on? I've never used the chainsaw one time, but I do have a chainsaw. Should I be allowed to have a chainsaw? The thing is, if there's not any party who's more well suited to have a gun than any other adult party, you know? Like, I don't more trust a cop with a gun than I trust myself, and you shouldn't either. So, I believe in a world where prospective violence, say thuggery, beating people up, knifing people, stealing their shit, whatever, is to at least some extent dissuaded by the possibility that someone might be packing, you know? That's not me, that's not my life, that's not how I roll, but I respect other people's right to do so. You know? Yes, there are dangers, there are risks. There's also a real concern that we securitize away our liberty and discover that the life we're so fervently protecting isn't worth living anymore. No, I don't respect the right for people to steal shit. That's not a right. I defined right. Right is that which confers a duty onto another. How does someone stealing my shit confer a duty onto another? That that's that is a rights violation. Rights stem from ownership. So we're born owning our own bodies and accordingly have the right to bodily integrity, for example. People can't do violence upon us. We also have the right to the product of our labors. So we own things and we have wealth that's fungible in terms of money. And those things stem from our own doing useful work for other people. I don't respect the right for people to steal my money via taxes. Okay, J. Coach Roll. It is the case that taxes are not theft. That doesn't mean they're good. That doesn't mean we don't have too many of them. But taxes are not the same thing as theft. Taxes comprise a necessary communal contribution schemata for public infrastructure that everybody uses, right? Now, granted, in the status quo, that's down to roads, cops, and ambulances. Note, you absolutely do not want for profit law enforcement. Absolutely not. There is no way to do anything with law enforcement except have it be the just and funded execution of the state's monopoly of use of power, independent of any financial incentives. It has to be that way, or you're going to get horrible injustice, right? And ideally, you'd have laws that don't allow discretionary enforcement, which is to say, if you've got, say, a drug law that allows discretionary enforcement, the cop can let you go or not. Nobody's going to complain either way. So you want to eliminate those kind of laws ideally, but not all of them. I think strict liability on traffic tickets is a reasonable thing, and cops seem to enforce it pretty reasonably. No, cops do not make more money if they book more people. They get a they get a salary, and there are no incentives. They might be able to work overtime, but no, absolutely not. There's no reward for writing more tickets or anything. That's totally illegal, against the rules. You call Trump Hitler and everybody Hitler, crazy people that don't get out think that. I never called Trump Hitler. Who are you talking to, Argilla Senecori 87? If you were here earlier, you would have heard me say Trump's not a good president, but way worse was George W. Bush and way worse was Obama. They were both way worse than Trump in terms of actual impacts to the country. So you're talking out of your ass instead of your mouth. Maybe you should change that. Having done a kind of an, oh, not you, bro, the news. I don't think the news is calling Trump Hitler. Why? Trump's obviously not Hitler. He's Trump. Trump's Trump's way dumber than Hitler. Hitler was way more evil than Trump, but Trump's way dumber than Hitler. Trump's not even evil. He's just a dumbass. He's just a borderline retarded. He's got incredibly shitty intuition and zero capacity to logically parse things. Plus, a huge ego and a lifetime of entitlement. It's a recipe for disaster. And I think actually Biden was a fine president because he did nothing. So, overall, there are almost no impacts from the Biden presidency. I wouldn't have voted for him, and I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for Trump either. And yes, I agree, Trump is considerably better than Kamala would have been. Kamala was an avalanche of a clusterfuck of a fuck-uppery that you wanted nothing to do with. Well, no, that's not true. Trump's a way worse president than Bill Clinton was. Granted, Bill Clinton was a scumbag, but he was a good president. Are you talking about Obama or Trump? I mean, like I said, Trump is a dumbass. If you want a good president, these guys are just going to have to elect me. I'm not unwilling to take the job. I am getting my teeth fixed right now at the dentist so I can look presentable. I'm the most qualified person for the job. I'm most correct about all the various policy issues. Most importantly, I recognize that the vast majority of things about which we disagree are not prospective policy issues. For example, Roe v. Wade, that decision's already been made. It's not going to be revisited. It's a court's thing. The president has nothing to do with it. So why would we ever argue over it? JFK was not a good president. He did a good job with the Cuban Missile Crisis, but I guess that gets him a pass. But ask what you can do for your country. No, you got both those things wrong. Don't ask what your country can do for you, and don't ask what you can do for your country. Be patriotic, be willing to serve if the people demand it, as I am. I'm a patriot, but that is totally the wrong relationship between citizen and country. So I've got Argilla saying, fuck, you're in Cali. People in my state love Trump. And then I've got T-Man saying, keep writing that conservative cock, brainwash the NDP. So which is it? Which is it? Am I a Trump-hating Democrat or am I a conservative cocksucker? Well, the answer is neither. I'm correct about every specific issue. For example, I understand that the EPA, while not constitutionally enumerated as one of Congress's powers to create, is a necessary uh, and important part of our federal government that is absolutely justified by the Interstate Commerce Clause because pollution doesn't respect state borders. I'm quite the environmentalist. I don't remember if I'm a libertarian, then why am I quite the environmentalist? I've already explained to you what I am. I am correct on every specific policy issue, and I do not fall under any labels because I'm not on your team and I'm not against your team. Okay? I'm on the team of correctness. No, I didn't vote for Ralph Nader. I'm all in favor of gay marriage, legalizing marijuana, those kind of things, because that's just sane, right? I'm anti-groupist, which includes groupists against the other political team. I believe in treating individuals like individuals and not assuming I know anything about them because of whatever group I choose to assign them to. I believe that my correctness will win the day at some point. I'm a genuinely patriotic American who is willing to serve as president of the United States, and I am a statesman. I am not a politician. I will not lie to you. I will provide you with the fiery truth of reasonableness, the fact that we're all on one team, and that the president's job is to represent all of the Americans, not just the ones who voted for him. No, I do think you should ban knives in the UK. I think you should ban guns in the UK, knives, sticks, forks, sharp fruit, like pineapples, for example. I think you should ban rocks. I think you should ban gasoline and fire. I think you should ban cars, obviously deadly cars, and you should allow some walking, but only with helmets on. And then we'll be safe. And then we just mandate everybody stay in their bubble wrapped cage 18 hours a day, and we'll be fine. Then we'll ban hands and feet. We can definitely have a permanent lockdown where only necessary businesses get to be open. Things like 7-Eleven, while the restaurant next door has to go out of business and the family go bankrupt and sell their home, and now they live in Motel 6. It's okay, we saved their lives. You fucks. You didn't save any lives. How how can how can the COVID people both be all like, we saved so many lives, at the same time as they're saying, look at all these millions of dead people from COVID, like without any sense of shame? It's ridiculous. We need to learn from that, right? Because I was articulating exactly all the correct positions on it from day one, except for one position I got wrong, which was I said, they're not really going to cancel March Madness, are they? They did. But as far as it being unquarantinable because of the long incubation period and total lack of immunity to it, I was right on the money. As far as the initial death rates being an exponent lower than they actually were, then lower in actuality than they said, I was dead on. And instead of 4%, it was 0.4%. But, that's what's going to happen when you only test the sickest people who are dying, who are 89 years old and have multiple pre-existing conditions. Dumbasses. I was correct that they weren't going to be able to make a vaccine for it. I was correct that we shouldn't be locked down regardless. I was correct about everything. But nobody listened to me. But you know what? that, what I just articulated, that should be a selling point to every American. Okay, this guy is proved already. He's right about shit. Let's elect him as president. He'd be a good president. Unlike Wrongy Joe or Wrongy Jane. Both of them, the problem with them is both. Like, what was the problem with Kamala and Donald Trump? Donald Trump's an idiot, and Kamala is possibly even a bigger idiot. She has absolutely no intuition at all. She was just lying on her ads in California right off the bat. Yeah, okay. I mean, no matter what side you're on, you have to acknowledge that Trump being badass after getting shot in the ear was pretty badass. But that's a lack of intuition too. What are you doing, dumbass? You just got shot in the ear. Maybe take cover. Even a pig knows to get in and out of the rain. But yeah, plenty of leader vibes. Okay, I'll concede that. You get plenty of tough guy leader points for that. Pretty cool, I guess. But I'm unfamiliar with those words. Are they lyrics? They sound like they might be rap music lyrics. Sounds like T-Man wants a rap song. Well, T-Man's in luck. Because I'm just the man to give him a rap song. Okay. Where is it? Probably. Word. I said, what word? I'm talking about words. Let's rap about words. I'm gonna rap about some words. I'm gonna tell you about what they say. I'm gonna go over a word like turds. I'm gonna tell you what it means to pay. I'm gonna explain all of the words that you wanted to know a long time ago, but I didn't tell you then because you didn't want to know then. That's why I waited until now. We're talking words. Oh yeah. We're talking words. I'm talking about words. We're using words, and we're using them to talk about words. Oh yeah. Give it to me, baby. Words are the things that you use with your mouth when you're talking to your friend and you're talking north or south and you're saying how you're doing and you're asking him how he's doing as well, and he's doing just fine. He saw a cow in a field and he wanted over there. He climbed over the fence but a bull came near and it chased him back over towards the fence there, and he climbed the other side, and that's right where. That's where I found him when he was telling me the story, but I didn't believe him because he was kind of lying kind of guy. He was kind of a lying kind of guy. So, don't believe a lying kind of guy. You can't believe him because liars will lie about what they see, and liars will try to lie to you and me. Lie, but only lie down, not up. Oh yeah. Wrap up here with this note right here, yeah. Wrap up long with it and you are clear. Wrap in a bit and then you say what? Wrap in a bit because I got what? Because I got a hot feeling cut. Then you would know what did the big but. Oh yeah, rapping and playing the drums at the same time. Wow, that was a great song. I hope you enjoyed it. Called Rapping by Eric. What about this one? That's too fancy. You gotta like Tijuana because it's got this beat. Not that though. Don't listen to me about that. This. It was a long time ago. I was in Old Mexico. I had just traveled not too far south of the border. It was Tijuana, a Tijuana time. And I said, give me one of those piggy banks and a piñata, please. They said, hola, how you doing? Did you wanna buy this shoe? It's made of Mexican leather, just like your mom. I said, hold on, how did you know? My mom's made of leather from her big toe all the way up to the top of her clavicle. While we Mexicans do a lot of research, we check in the tourists who coming around so we can personalize their experience for them. And I said, wow, that's considerate, so super considerate. I think I could get used to that kind of treatment indeed. Tijuana, I think you're growing on me. Tijuana, I think you're my friend, but then again, you steal my gin. I was passed out on the beach, sipping it. Oh no, senor, you were not sipping on your drink. You were passed out and getting all red all over. You should thank me for saving you from a terrible sunburn. I knew you wouldn't want to wake up to that. And thanks to me, you won't. By the way, my name is Miguel. Yeah! Oh, yeah! Yo! Yeah! Yo! Go do a Charlie Kirk song. Sounds a little depressing. Welcome to Jamaica and the reggae sounds. This is a beat with the reggae frown, and I know it won't be the last time you hear my reggae beat this year. Reggae times in the reggae sun. I'm a reggae friend for everyone. Birds come and land on my face. I say, you're okay. Don't race away. Because it's reggae time for you and me today. But when the reggae gets really active and I've got to smoke some sinsemilla, that's when I say, hey, dance hall, let's boogie down in reggae style. I've got a reggae name. It has a reggae game. My reggae name is Dreadlock Eric. Oh, Dreadlock Eric, won't you come to town and play the reggae beat for us once again? How you did before was a magical time. We all enjoyed the reggae beat, and Simon enjoyed it a lot indeed. And that's why we made you a reggae steed. You can be a horse that will reggae ride all the reggae way to the reggae tide, because you are the new Bob Marley. I'm the new Bob Marley. Who knew? I didn't. Now I do. How about a waltz? That's too slow. Seems a little bit slow. How about that? Yeah. A long time ago, before there was sleet or snow, there lived a man named Mr. Weather. He would tell you the weather, though it was always rain or sunny, so we only had two options of weather. But not everybody thought that was cool. Many of the people wanted something more. What's that white stuff clouding the morning view? I can barely see through it. I wonder, how about you? So the weather guy said, let's have a contest instead of crucifying me. That's a good idea, I've got a good name. I think we should call it cloud rain. It's cloud like a cloud, but it's on the ground. We should call it cloud rain all around, but not everybody agreed. Others said that's too complicated. People are gonna get confused. Is it cloud or rain? Then Jeremy Fogg came out and said, how about you name it after me? My last name is Fogg. Mr. Gartson said, why don't we just call it Gartson instead? Because if we're gonna name it after anybody, it should be me. Why is that the case, do you suppose? Said Mr. Fogg. I think Fogg's a damn good name for those clouds on the ground. A gavel was struck, and everyone ducked, and finally everyone agreed it would be called fog from that day forward. Amen. And that's the story of fog. This is the forbidden dance, the tango. That's the forbidden dance. Tango with your hands in my pants. This is the tangoiest thing that you'll ever see in your life. So tango with me, tango freely, tango with me, and see the Geely. Tango until you cannot tango anymore. Then tango some more. Can you tango? If you don't want to tango with me, maybe you could tango with Bree. I don't want to tango with him either. My name is Bree. I don't want to tango with you because you don't know how to tango. For shit. Maybe I don't know how to tango. Is that any reason to shame me? A little fast. A little bit fast. I've had a number of people tell me that's history's greatest song. I think it might be a little overstating it, but it's close. Well, I want to tell you once about a blues song thing. Blues songs are the ones that go like this. You could sing a blues song playing just a couple of notes. Oh yeah, yeah. If you like your blues song with some French horn, put a little French horn in and you're gone. Pretty soon you'll realize French horn don't go with that. But change the voice a little bit. Maybe this one. Right. A blues song has to be sad. It tells a story that is bad. Your blues song had better have tragedy. Now, some common themes for your blues song could be, or women, you know that one goes wrong, or maybe even a dead dog. You could complain about how your shoes got holes. You could complain about how your walls have noses that smell you wherever you go. That's right. But if you're like me, you say, I want my walls nose free. Please, if you're like me, you say, get those noses off my wall. And once you're done with your blues song, then you've had spilled your heart about your sadness, and you're gonna tell everybody how you've got the blues. Try it like this. I was born in the gutter on the mudder side of Mississippi River, and I didn't have a breakfast for a dinner. I just had a lunch made of bark and junk, because I've got the blues for sure. I grew up down there in the Mississippi Delta. I played with my hair, but it wasn't ever yellow. And now I've got the permanent Mississippi Delta blues. After that, I went to school, but I was retarded. I couldn't learn anything they tried to taught it. Instead, I had to just deal with failing. When I asked out a girl, she spit on me. I said, that gives me the blues, oh geez. When I asked for a loan at the bank, they laughed. They said, get out of here with your broken, stupid ass. I got the blues. But at least I have my song. It lets me let the sadness drip out from the bottom. That's right, if my song's got holes in them, it ain't a bad thing when the sadness is dripping wind. But if its happiness is gone, then I'd rather not have a colander. The blues. That was the blues. All right. Everybody go and march over to the left. After you are done, turn around, come back. Now march there while you're playing your brass instruments. That's very good. And 1 and 2 and 1 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. You go march and you go 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. 1 and 2. That's what you should do now. You are marching. Why? Because you're in the military band. I don't know why you selected this activity, but hey, who am I to question your judgment? So, welcome to my military band. I won't question your judgment, but you can't do anything but march around the court yard. Good job, marchers. You did a good job. I'm proud of you. Now it's time for a show tune. Well, I think we're going to go over there. We're going to see that thing, and we're going to buy that chair. We're going to sit down there, and we're going to make that. Like that. Or it could be more like this. I see you over there, and I want to make love to you. I am singing in the musical. What is this flower, and what is this tree? It's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. I'm experiencing some showtime joy. Oh yeah, let's go. Now, Margaret, my dear, I'm concerned your effervescence is a little overwhelming, perhaps. You should take it easy, take a nap, have a rest, be safe. I'm concerned about your well-being, don't you know? Oh, Papa, you know I can't resist myself. Spring is in the air and there's flowers all around. I'm going to pick them up off the ground. Just watch me. Ooh, this one's pretty. And then when I've gathered a bouquet, all the flowers round, I'll take them down and see Teresa in the hospital town. And I'll give her these flowers. And I'm sure, Papa, I'm just sure they're going to make her healthy again. That's how they do musicals. That's how they do musicals. What are you writing all this stuff, T-Man? What is that stuff? I don't know. You want snake jazz, huh? I could sing you some cool jazz, like I used to visit all those very gay places, those come what may places, where you can wash away the abandonment through the day, with too many new the day, new o'clock tales. Then you fell in love with my siren song, sent to a madness of a great love for me. Lush Life's hard. I'm kind of butchering it. I should have sang Misty instead. I was wrong. Again, I was wrong. But life is awful again. A trough full of hearts would only be unsure. A week in Paris would ease the sight of it. All I care is to smile in spite of it. I'll forget you, I will, while yet you are still burning inside my brain. Romance is mush, stifling those who strive. I live a lush life in some small dive, and there I'll be while I rot with the rest of those whose lives are lonely too. Tough song to sing, especially when my voice is kind of scratchy. So let's try a different jazz number here on K-Jazz tonight. We're offering only the most haphazard renditions of your jazz classics. Walk my way, and 1,000 violins begin to play. Or it might be the sound of your hello. The music I hear, I get misty the moment you're near. On my own, would I wander through this wonderland alone? Ever knowing my right foot from my left, my hat from my glove, I'm too misty and too much in love. You can say that you're leading me on, but I just what I want you to do. Don't you know that's how hopelessly I'm lost? That's why I'm following you. I don't know any of these things you're saying. The back of his head, now he's dead because he fell face down right on the streets. I don't know that song, T-Man. Sounds like a sad tale of violence. I've got my own alternative urban kind of song. Hey everybody, let's join a gang. It's called the Fun Friends Gang. Instead of doing crimes, we'll do rhymes. We'll do fun stuff like throw a frisbee disc. Yes, we will. It'll be great. I'll be nice to you, and you be nice to me. That's my alternative to those hard streets songs. Because, you can't just tell people, don't be hard in the streets. You got to give them an alternative. My alternative is the Fun Friends Gang. Where, we're just kind to each other and do fun things together. It's not very tough, really, but it is tough if you spell tough F-U-N. That's true. I guess I'm about running out of live stream. I played a lot of music for a while. That requires a lot of indulgence on the part of the audience for me to just fuck around on the keyboard like that. Sometimes I try harder to be a good live streamer than others. This live stream's been pretty good. The first part of it was pretty good. Then I started fucking around with the piano. In case you couldn't tell, I'm not good at playing the keyboards. I am a pretty good guitarist. Okay, pretty good. Good enough for my purposes. But much better than I am a piano player. But it can be fun fucking around on the piano when you haven't for a while. You feel like it. Oh, and your own speed. That's an important one you want to throw in there as well. I guess I need to eat some food. What kind of food am I going to eat? Well, I'm going to eat some low carb, low sugar food. And when I do, I experience the joy of not having to get up and pee multiple times a night. Yeah. It's like we should have come together things where nobody has any alternate opinion besides that shit that went down with that guy is a national disgrace and horrible. Anybody celebrating it, they're just being downright un-American. Doesn't matter what side of things they're on. Well, yeah, if you look realistically at the last two presidential terms, not including this Trump term, but they're pretty harmless presidents. This term, Trump's doing a little bit more real world harm. I think the deportations are very ill-advised and just pointless fucking with people. But I think the tariffs are dumb, but I've been wrong about Trump's things on occasion before too. Like, I thought his whole trade war with China thing during his first term was a terrible idea, but it turned out actually to work out just fine. So sometimes I'm wrong. I am wrong with some things. I thought it was stupid of him to try to shame North Korea's dictator because, they're Asians. They take shame seriously. But it was fine. Nothing happened. Trump's biggest failure in his first term was the same failure everybody else in the country was making, which is he was not articulating the right arguments against COVID alarmism. And he had the bully pulpit and he failed to do so. So that was certainly a shortcoming. But he wasn't like, Gavin Newsom. Like, let's lock everybody up in a bubble. Hopefully we've learned our lesson. Just hope we don't have an actual, like, airborne Ebola or something that actually requires us to quarantine, because we paid such a massive price already, inflation and other harms. I don't think we can afford to do it again. And, that's what being reasonable means too. If it is something like airborne Ebola with like 25% fatality, 50% fatality rate, well, then I don't think you're going to have to fight anybody about going out, right? I think that they might lock down, but people are going to lock down all on their own without any encouragement because they don't want to have a 50% chance of dying. That's why it's important we be honest about things. The fatality rate of COVID was 0.4%. And just because the total number of fatalities was higher, that doesn't change the calculus for each individual, right? And that's where the calculus needs to be done at the individual level. I'm fine with a 0.4% fatality rate, which isn't even that, because it's like the 0.4% who die weren't me. They weren't my demographic. I remember one of the most absurd things I ever heard in a conversation about COVID back when people were freaking out about it. I said, okay, if you're so worried about the old people, why don't you just make them stay home? And the person said, we can't lock down our old people. You're advocating for locking down everybody. Can you imagine somebody saying that? Like, what are they thinking? They're not thinking, obviously. They're thinking, we can't single out the old people for locking them in their house all the time, unaware that somehow at the same time they're advocating for locking down everybody in their house. Well, then it's more fair because the old people won't be alone. They probably don't even live in the same house. It's ridiculous. Recalculus. Remind me of Bill Maher. I'm nothing like Bill Maher. I'm nothing like Bill Maher at all. Bill Maher is a, very partisan. I mean, what I am saying here and what I'm expressing here about various things is the most cogent and correct things you will hear anywhere on the internet. I am nothing at all like any of the myriad failed pundits. He's a racist weirdo. I'm not racist at all. I'm fluidly transracial. I mean, Trump's biggest failure as a president. Um, the Israel thing, you got to remember the conflict in Gaza between the Israelis and the Palestinians has been going on for 50 some years. It was a debate impact we did when I was debating in high school. Nothing's changed. Every single president has accomplished nothing with that. Trump accomplishing nothing with that is nothing new. Um, you know, him being a pedophile or whatever, well, I don't think that's really fully proved, but if even if it is, that's not um, that's not really a way to judge him as a president. Like Bill Clinton was pretty. He when he flew on Air Force One, they called it the Lolita Express. So pretty scumbag shit, right? But he was still a good president, just in terms of his job, evaluating his job performance. I'm a genocidal idiot. I'm not a genocidal idiot. I mean, I just expressed the reality of the past 50 some odd years. Do I think the U.S. should be supporting Israel in this? Absolutely not. Israel's in the wrong, obviously. They took the Palestinians' land, and now they're trying to have their kind of like contemporary version of apartheid going on. They view everything that the Palestinians do as terrorism, and everything that they do as justifiable response, even though it's disproportionate. Don't even get me started, right? But to think that Trump failing to fix that is one of the worst things he's done is misplacing the agency, right? But see, you didn't ask any questions. You didn't listen to the words I was saying. I'm obviously not a genocidal idiot. And the reality of the ongoing conflict in Gaza has stretched well over 50 years, and nobody's been able to fix it. Nobody will be able to fix it except for the fucking Israelis when they get their heads out of their asses. If I were president, I'd tell them that in no uncertain terms. I'd say, look, if you want it positioned in a way that makes you seem like you're getting a good deal, position it like this. Afford them full national status, autonomy, etc. Recognize their rights as a nation state, even if you do it unilaterally and they don't recognize yours. Because then if they attack you, you can really actually fuck them up because it's another nation state attacking you. They might be able to buy that argument because they hate them so much. So the thing is, T-Man, be aware. I am correct about everything. Sometimes I'm wrong, occasionally. But I keep note of those things and bring them up later, right? Like, I was wrong about this. I was wrong about that. No, we should not be funding Palestine. Like, who are you going to give the money to? The PLO? We should stay the fuck out of it because all of our interference for the past 6 decades has accomplished nothing. Should we be giving Israel weapons? No. Should we be helping them blow up Iran's nuclear shit? No. They are perfectly capable of doing all that themselves. I don't mind them attacking me if those were my positions, but he didn't bother determining what my positions were. All you have to do is ask. I have the correct positions on what Israel should do, what the U.S. should not do, and how none of us should be caring about it because it's obviously an intransigent problem. We ran those debate impacts when I was coaching debate too. How much more attention could I possibly give to the matter? You people over there figure it out. I have a solution, by the way, which is remove both Israel and Palestine from the Holy Land, move them to different sides of Africa, clear out some wildlife refuge, put the wildlife in the Holy Land, and turn it into a wildlife safari, Holy Land, and casino adventure. Meanwhile, there'll be the whole middle part of Africa between Palestine and Israel, and they'll still find some way to fight each other, probably. So what do you think about my Safari Park casino idea? It's a good idea, right? We can monetize the Holy Land. Like, what are we getting out of it now? Just a bunch of arguments between Americans about their fucking problem, right? We don't need that. We had Americans protesting what Israel was doing in Gaza, protesting in America. We're not Israel, dumbasses. Protest things America is doing. It's like, what does Israel care if Americans are protesting in America about them? And then Israel trying to turn every oppositism. Oh my God. I can oppose you, Israel, without being anti Semitic. You have presumed yourself to be the voice of all Jews or something. Bullshit. Israel. More like stink real. What did it say? Cute to make light of the situation. Yeah, I'll make light of the situation. I made serious of the situation more times and in more depth than you will in 100 lifetimes. I was a debater and a debate coach. We ran impacts in that region all the fucking time. It's a good link story to the global nuclear war. So don't tell me I don't care enough about it or I shouldn't make light of it. I actually did mountains of intellectual work on the subject, unlike you. Oh, there he is. I wondered where our praying mantis went. We have a praying mantis here. It's pretty exciting. I love praying mantises. You want to check it out? You're just waiting for some bugs. You're just waiting for some bugs to come by and he's going to get them. Praying mantises are the coolest of all bugs. Makes me want to leave the lights on so the bugs will come around so you can eat them. If I were reincarnated as a bug, I'd want to be reincarnated as a praying mantis. Oliver Linehan, excellent. Well done, sir. Wonder point for you. It's no longer Wednesday, so sorry about that. Point value's not double, but you do get a wonder point. I don't give them out very often. I'm saving millions of lives by staying home. It's amazing how people can be and have just these wrong opinions about things. Like, what's with all these people like siding with Russia and the Russia-Ukraine thing? For fuck's sake, Russia is the bald-faced aggressor. There were no actual, separatist uprisings that started this thing. That was all undercover Russian shit. It's as illegal internationally and as appalling as far as respecting national sovereignty as anything you can imagine. And we got half the country being like, oh, it's Ukraine's fault somehow. What are these people thinking? I do not know. Nobody has that coming for engaging in political discourse. That's ridiculous. You might not have agreed with him. I don't know what his positions were, but regardless, we should all embrace the idea of somebody going out there and engaging people in civil discourse about things, arguing points. The winning argument is the correct position. I don't know if he had the winning arguments or not, but at least if people are arguing, then it's possible for somebody to win, in theory. Well, even if those were his words, he's wrong. He's just as wrong as you are. It's appalling. The notion that he could have internalized that idea that could possibly be justified is horrifying. And you should feel horrified by it as well. The fundamental principle of proportionality. If I'm talking shit that you don't like, you talk shit that I don't like. That's proportional. No, he was saying that people will be shot if people are allowed to have guns. Just like people will burn down forests if they're allowed to have gasoline and fire. Just like people will run people over their car, maybe intentionally into a crowd of people, etc. The point is, his point was not that he had it coming at all, remotely, and that kind of misrepresentation is appalling. His point was, I'd prefer to live free and incur this risk, and you should too. Right? Because I'm not remotely worried about being a victim of gun violence, and I live in a very Second Amendment friendly county. Of course, it's rural. The real question I have is simply this: should I be able to have a gun? And the answer is yes. Why shouldn't I? Whom do I trust to have a gun more than me? Guns exist. And of course, then there's something I don't typically want to fixate on too much, but there's the practicality of it. So there are over 300 million guns currently in the U.S. If you were to imagine trying to take those guns away, how are you going to do that? You're going to have somebody with a gun come to somebody's house and say, you must give me your gun? It's crazy. Yes, there will be gun violence. Yes, there will be deaths. But there will also be deaths from car crashes. We could live in North Korea. Nobody has any chance of ever getting hurt in a car crash. They're a lot safer than we are. Right? Or maybe you don't want to be controlled by other people so much. Well, you keep making a fundamental mistake here, T-Man. You've got to critique this thing in terms of foreseeable versus intentional consequences. 99.999% of gun owners never have any problem with it. Never involved in any crime. And, in fact, the U.S. federal government has passed myriad regulations trying to limit gun ownership, limit caliber, limit capacity, limit automatic, etc. And in the aftermath of all that gun legislation, that's when all the shootings happened. So it doesn't work, is the other thing. What you need to think about in terms of, if you have an idea like guns are bad, do you have an advocacy? And if you do have an advocacy, what would it be? Because remember, pretty much everything that can be legislated about guns has already been legislated. I don't have right wing talking points. I'm correct, okay? I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a libertarian. I'm correct. When you look at the complete package for the US, what you see is a society that has shit tons of guns already, right? Over 300 million guns. I'd actually think it may be that the gun population exceeds the actual population. Um, so if you're advocating some sort of gun-based solution, legislative solution regarding guns, what's your proposal? How do you imagine to get all those guns away from all those people? Are you going to send people with guns to take them away without any recognition of the hypocrisy there? On another level, the bottom line is we don't, it's not a good idea to try to take away everything that might cause problems, right? Because there's always unintended consequences. And additionally, we're projecting our own frame of reference a lot of times, you know? I pick up a book. I've read shit tons of books, dude. I've made debate cases on gun control issues before as well, where I'm required to make a case on the affirmative and on the negative side. Make the best possible case for both sides. So what I'm telling you is what I've learned in doing shit tons of research. I spent my career as a policy debate coach, which means we debated topics just like this. How's that, idiot? I mean, I don't know why you would call me an idiot. Everything I'm saying makes perfectly good sense, is cogent, is legitimate. We've got three very serious prongs in the way of any gun control, right? We have a clearly stated Second Amendment that guarantees the right for individual gun ownership, which has been upheld by the Supreme Court to mean individuals can't have a handgun, you know? We've got abundant guns already in the country that there's not any good way to get rid of them, right? And lastly, we have myriad pieces of federal legislation that exercise varying kinds of gun control, and that has not prevented any shootings. So that's just being realistic about things, right? Not being conservative or liberal, just honest. What makes you think I don't read? I'm not brilliant. I'm correct. I'm reasonable and correct. I could be the dumbest man in the world. I don't care. I'm an expert at being correct. I dispassionately assess all the arguments on both sides and determine what the winning arguments are, and that's the correct position. It's just that simple. But it's simple for me. It's almost impossible for most people because it requires both the right attentional stack and the right life experience and training and job, you know. The thing to note, of course, is, man, you don't have an advocacy. If you had an advocacy, you'd have to worry about stock issues like solvency, inherency, jurisdictional legitimacy or topicality, was how what we call it in debate, but it would be jurisdictional legitimacy, etc. What are you proposing? If you're not proposing anything, then you're just trying to determine whether somebody's on the correct team based on this wedge issue idea. Like, if they're not totally in favor of maximum gun control, they must be a conservative whack job. Well, that's not a good way to think. I don't use vagueness to my advantage. I'm being very clear about everything. I articulated three very clear and for specific reasons why any kind of gun control advocacy is certainly climbing up a steep hill, right? Constitutional protection, which has been validated by the Supreme Court, the myriad gun control laws that already have not worked, and the massive amount of guns already in the country. There's nothing vague about any of those 3 points. They're very concrete, very specific, and they are the winning points. If you had any actual advocacy, you would have no way to work around those problems. There's no solvency in your case. You're just whining. I'm not fence sitting. I'm a Second Amendment supporter. In part because I'm a constitutionalist, in part because I see it as leveling the playing field between people who are less physical strength and people who have more. In a world without guns, strong people can take easy advantage of weaker people. Guns level the playing field. People have the right to self-defense, and maybe that doesn't necessarily entail a gun, but if you're a frail person, then a gun is probably the most effective means you can have for self-defense. People have the right to defend their own homes. I believe in the castle doctrine, and I mean, I couldn't get any less vague. I've articulated all the specifics that anybody could possibly want to know about the thing. Well, I'm opposed to slavery, obviously. Just because I'm a constitutionalist doesn't mean I don't think that legitimate changes to the Constitution change the Constitution. And those parts of the Constitution were amended, changed, rendered invalid by legitimate processes to change the Constitution. So, like, I would be in favor of prohibition back in the time because they did it right. They actually changed the Constitution, enabling the federal government to have the power to execute prohibition. And I was in favor of them repealing it, of course, because I think prohibition is a terrible idea. But it was done legitimately, and that's what matters. I'm moving the goalposts and you don't even realize it. A constitutionalist includes the part of the Constitution which explains how to change the Constitution. So when new constitutional amendments come in, then that is the Constitution I'm supporting, right? Regardless, it's not perfect. I don't need the Constitution to be perfect to recognize that it functions as a protection for liberty by enumerating the powers of the legislature and by enshrining the rights of individuals in the Bill of Rights. It's not perfect, but we definitely don't want to ignore it when it's defending people's rights, upholding them as to be upheld. Okay, well, if you want to amend the Constitution to excise the Second Amendment, you need 3/4 majority in the House and Senate, or 3/4 of the governors of all the states, if I remember correctly. So if you'd like to amend it, then that's your advocacy. Let's amend the Constitution. Okay, I don't agree with you. Because even if we did amend the Constitution, we would amend it to allow the federal government to restrict guns ownership. We'd still have the problem of a country full of guns and no way to take them away from people except by sending other people with guns. And we'd still additionally have the issue of the need for people to legitimately attain the means of self-defense, because we don't live in a perfect world, and weak people should be able to defend themselves too. I'm saying I support the Constitution, not the Constitution without amendments, but the current Constitution. And I'm saying that I think it's good that people have the right to own guns. I'm pleased that I have that right. I have a gun. I just inherited it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have one. I'm not a gun nut in any sense of the word. But I'm glad to live in a country where not just special people get to have all the firepower, you know? So send the people with guns, but I thought guns were bad. They shouldn't be allowed to have guns. You're going to have to send unarmed people to take the guns away from the armed people. I mean, I there's nothing here I'm saying that doesn't make perfectly good sense, and there's also nothing here I'm saying that's not entirely reasonable. You, on the other hand, these words of yours, these are not the words of a reasonable person. You are not engaged with these ideas as ideas to be parsed for correctness. You are engaged with them as parts of your identity that you're emotionally attached to. You want to attack me because you've reduced politics to he's either on the good guy team or the bad guy team. And I've got these specific wedge issues that I'm going to adjudicate this question on. Note, of course, the Supreme Court has already ruled on the Second Amendment issue multiple times, definitively. And any advocacy I might have to change the laws without changing the Constitution would immediately be struck down by the Supreme Court, even if it was in line with what you wanted. Right? That's called thinking about things all the way through. I, I mean, I do have a lot of fun on my little planet. My grandfather was shot to death when I was in fifth grade. He was actually shot 7 times in his pharmacy. I support that murderer having his right to own a gun removed after he's proved that he can't use one responsibly. So we're on the same page here, buddy. I have a murder victim in my family, and didn't just kill my grandfather, more or less kind of killed my grandmother slowly. She wasn't the same after that. He was a great guy. But you know what? You know why he was killed? No, I think my grandpa would agree with me. You've got to remember my grandpa was World War II era, right? Where people believed in the land of the free and the home of the brave. But regardless, he was killed because it was a lunch break. He was he was supposed to testify in the afternoon against somebody who had robbed him before, right? On the lunch break, they let I guess the guy was out on bail, and he went over to my grandfather's pharmacy and killed him so he couldn't testify. Note, of course, he had a clear motive to kill him and did not need a gun to kill him. Probably would have killed him anyway. So, yeah, I recognize that my grandfather died by a gunshot. Guess who else died by a gunshot? My father. Do I think it should have been more difficult for him to self-determine his ending? No, I think it was good that he was able to self-determine it in the rather abrupt and certain way that he did. You know, his life, it wasn't much left for him. He lost his mobility, his hearing, his sight. His wife was in hospice. Things were awful shitty for him. And COVID did quite a number on him too. So, for his reasons, it was time for him to tap out. I'm perfectly fine with him having that tool at his disposal. I don't think anybody believes in unrestricted gun ownership. Like, I don't think anybody's advocating people should be able to buy a nuclear weapon. It's not a tool I necessarily. I have a daughter. I don't think she's opposed to Second Amendment rights. She might be. The point though is, look, let's say I were a political candidate that you had the opportunity to vote for me. My perspective on gun control should not be something you vote on because there's nothing to be done about it, right? The Supreme Court's already ruled. We have myriad gun laws already in place. If one more or less little teeny bit of gun legislation that I might veto or pass or whatever isn't going to make any difference. This is all about you feeling passionately that people who support guns are on the wrong team. They're the bad guys. That's all this is. My daughter knows well my position. She actually debated for me for a little while. She wasn't very dedicated to it, so she didn't turn out to be very good. But she knows all my positions on this. She sometimes makes silly arguments like the one you're making. For example, she was trying to tell me I really need to go get the COVID booster shots, even though they didn't prevent the disease. They made you slightly less likely to die from it under certain circumstances. I said, Delilah, I don't care, Dad. If it helps even a little bit, you should do it. The risk fallacy is just running rampant all over the place. First of all, those stats were very specious, and they only apply to certain time frames and certain demographics. And of course, she's taken every COVID shot that they possibly offer, and she's gotten COVID more than anybody I know. I shit you not. She's gotten COVID so many times. You feel like you need a shower. Well, you probably do feel that way because you you had a chance here to engage with a very calm and reasonable person in a calm and reasonable way, and instead you're trying to demonize me, make me out to be one of the bad guys and an idiot and a bunch of other things, even though everything I've said has been entirely cogent and correct. I ain't trying to be smart, dude, just correct. Yeah, Andy, that's my experience with my daughter. I don't. It's just anecdotal, but she got every shot she could get, and she's had COVID so many times I can't even count. At least 10 times. It's ridiculous. She's just. I think T Man is fairly well trying to demonize me when he says his conversation with me makes him feel like he needs a shower, and when he says things like, out of your fucking gourd, you're nuts, cry me a river, wake the fuck up, your generation is ruining the planet, you're okay with amendments when it suits you. You're agenda boomer. I'm a big believer in trying to adhere to the Constitution as best as possible. You know, by and large, even if it's not perfect, it is the law of the land. So yeah, I think it's fair to say Andy said that he was kind of trying to demonize me. Maybe not demonize me, but delegitimize me anyway. He says, I'm not smart. That's fine. I'm not trying to be smart. I'm just correct. I execute the processes of being correct consistently. That doesn't always produce the right result. Sometimes I'll be wrong, but what I do faithfully is execute the processes of being correctly and consistently. That means disinterest, evaluating all the possible arguments, understanding all the various implications. It requires a lot, really. It seems straightforward enough to me, maybe. That's because I spent decades practicing it by being a debate coach and being a debater and a philosopher of sorts, I guess. Thinking about these things a lot. Like when you say read a book, like what about me suggests that I'm not well read? But anyway, books are for squares. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. I'm so sorry that the state of affairs in America these days, politics has devolved into such un-American bullshit as to kill somebody because you disagree with them. That's like ISIS shit. I had to take the first one. I had to get shot because they wouldn't let me visit my dying mother in the nursing home unless I obeyed their mandatory vaccine. The point, Andy Sear, is not that he was a great man or not, or that he was a bad man or anything like that. It's that he was doing something good, engaging in public discourse about politics, and he was killed for it. And that is a disgrace, a national disgrace, and a horrible tragedy. Doesn't matter what he was saying at all. This country needs to remember that times change and expectations of liberty and such change. But everybody should always remember that critically core to American values is freedom of expression, especially freedom of political speech. Well, of course, given the fact that the vaccine didn't work, even after I took the vaccine, I still had to wear a mask because the vaccine was not going to prevent me from getting COVID. And if I were to get it, it wouldn't prevent me from giving it to others because it was not a vaccine. It was a failed attempt to vaccine. I remember making a vaccine stamp for a document to be able to travel from Switzerland to Italy. Those were the days. Eric, man, this T man is getting on my nerves. You maneuvered his trash talk skillfully. Yeah, well, it's possible you take something away from this, like maybe I could be more reasonable, something like that. You never know. People don't typically inform you about how you impact them, but you may impact them nevertheless. Like I know this just because somebody might say something and I might seem to dismiss it in the moment, but I've heard it. And then I think about it later and I determine they're right. And it changes something in me. It changes some, yeah. And I don't necessarily tell them that that happened. The point is, the point is, anytime you want to talk about whether he's a great guy or not, you're missing the point. He was an American exercising his constitutionally protected right to political speech, and he was murdered for it. And that's a national disgrace and a terrible tragedy. That's all there is to say about it. If you start saying anything else, then you're trying to play a team, and that's bad. I want to remind every American that every representative that we elect is supposed to represent all of us, not just the people that voted for them. Can you think of any candidates who seem to be interested in representing all of us? I might not agree exactly with your position, but I respect that you've got a voice here, and I'm going to try to do the best I can for you and by you. If I might think you're wrong about something, that we need to protect system integrity for your well-being and everyone else's, and you might yeah, but you could be confident that I genuinely believe I'm doing what's best for you. You're not part of the group I don't care about, right? I care about you as an American. Nobody should be willing to die for their viewpoints because nobody should have to die for their viewpoints. Viewpoints are not death penalty worthy. Proportionality needs to be recalled. If you don't like what I say, then you say something I don't like. You should not be willing to die for your viewpoints. You might be willing to die for some other things, like, die fighting to prevent your country from being invaded. That's a reasonable thing to do. You've got your property, your family. You don't want to lose your whole life, etc. So you're gonna fight knowing you run some risks. But that's not a viewpoint. That's your national sovereignty, the sovereignty of your property, etc. I'm a big believer in deliberative bodies like courts as a good way to resolve problems. I think courts are great in a lot of ways. They're expensive and a hassle, so people don't use them frivolously. Contrast that with health insurance and medical care. They're also very no nonsense. And by and large, I think they do a good job of determining what's correct. Best they can. A jury is just a blessing beyond compare, right? You got your fellow citizens passing judgment on you. No aristocracy. You got to get 12 people in agreement that you're guilty. That's a That's a robust system. That makes me choke up, you know. It's so noble, so bright and good. Unfortunately, most people plea bargain. It would seem to me that somebody listening to me explaining all these various things would say, well, he certainly seems well informed. At the very least, right? And tonight, anyway, he certainly seems reasonable. Sometimes I get animated. But just goes to show you, some people aren't evaluating the data on its merits. Good way to put it. I read the comments, Andy Sear. I'm glad you love me. I'm not going to read your comment from 212 because, like all these other groups that people want to blame for things, there's no such monolithic whole. I'm tired of correcting people all the time. Nobody likes being corrected. Nobody likes me saying I'm correct. Here I am presenting gospel truth. Nobody wants it. They want it. They want to be left in peace. Yeah, I looked into him a little bit. Flat Earth too. I think Flat Earth is a good example because, like, you can talk about the moon landing and you can talk about Flat Earth. Now keep in mind, I believe in the moon landing, okay? I don't think the moon landing was fake, but it's reasonable to posit that the moon landing might be fake. And the reason it's reasonable to posit that it might be fake is in part because it's a single event. We're talking about the initial moon landing, right? It's a single event. We can construct link stories explaining why the federal government might have been motivated to fake this. And the conspiracy doesn't really have to run that deep, depending on how they set it up. Not everybody has to know what's going on, right? But so it's not entirely unreasonable to posit that the moon landing might be fake. In contrast, it's entirely unreasonable to posit that the Earth might be flat. And the difference between the Earth being flat and the moon landing being fake is that we have lots of various explanations of various things that logically validate internally, plus lots of observational realities that are explained by a mostly globular Earth that are not explained at all by a flat Earth. So instead of just having to show that some event was faked, you'd have to show that all these perfectly like understandable, intuitable explanations that fit together with each other like a glove, like they were meant to be, right? Like in fact they are accurate. That all of those have some preferable alternate explanation. Now, normally to negate something, you don't need a preferable alt because normally if you're negating something, you're just saying it doesn't do its job. So I negate evolution. Evolution does not explain where species came from. I negate it. I don't have an alternate app because evolution itself is not an app. It doesn't do the work of explaining the thing, right? In contrast, a globular Earth revolving around the sun explains lots of things that I can verify in a cross check against lots of other things. Like, so how do we explain the seasons? Well, it makes perfect sense. You can demonstrate with a basketball and a lamp, and you can show how it spins around, and everything makes perfect sense. So, since we have so many explanations predicated on the idea of a heliocentric solar system with mostly globular planets, since we have so many explanations that both validate against observations and validate internally, there definitely needs to be an alternate path if you're going to argue flat Earth that says, actually, I've got an even better, more complete set of explanations that fit together, both being logically consistent internally, and being consistent with observations and making predictions, and in fact, finding those predictions are validated rather than falsified, which is all the stuff that goes around with being a heliocentric solar system with mostly globular planets. Okay, so big difference then. If you think the moon landing is fake, your NI might be just running amok, because intuitively it seems weird they have these spindly little things that somehow went to the moon and somehow sent live TV footage back down, and then we kind of like lost the technology. There's lots of NIQs that might make you want to go, maybe the moon landing is fake. That's not an insane thing to do. It's just a cognitive function tendency of probably NI front stack, but if you think the Earth is flat, then you have a very poor relationship with concept, understanding, models, etc. So what Flat Earth Dave, as far as I can tell, is trying to do is to falsify a globular Earth by pointing out this thing's not quite right, that thing's not quite right. But the only reason he can nitpick these little things, and they typically all turn out to have perfectly good explanations, but is because it's so thoroughly been validated and that map's been explored so much, right? In contrast, he provides nothing, right? There are no things that validate a flat Earth. He has a few arguments that falsify, purportedly, a globular Earth. So essentially, he's saying your standard of proof is impossibly high. My standard of proof is impossibly low. That's just bad thinking. Okay, so I'm not trying to encourage people to think either the moon landing is fake or the Earth is flat. I'm just pointing out that it's reasonable to think, maybe not reasonable, but exactly reasonable, but I can get it. It's understandable. It's not totally insane to think the moon landing is fake. It is totally insane to think the Earth is flat. I just don't even know. That's not your NI running amok. That's just a deep distrust of authority and a deep suspicion that anybody with authority, academic or otherwise, is part of some grand scheme to lie to the people or something. I mean, I don't know. So to summarize, moon landing real, evolution bullshit, flat earth insane. Moon landing real, but understandable why you're suspicious. Okay. There are plenty of suspicious things about it, but I still think it was real. Evolution, complete bullshit. Explains nothing. It isn't an explanation. Well, put some water on a plate and spin it and see what happens. It all goes shooting off the edge. Right? Unless you're saying the earth is a bowl, and that's why it holds liquids. I don't know about gravity, but I do know that the moon appears to be round. But the moon appears to be round, and you can even see with a telescope from with your own eyes the curve around showing that it's globular. So if the moon's a globe, why wouldn't the earth be a globe? Okay, well fine. Let's say the moon is just a glowing light. It's still a globe. You can see the curve when you look at it with a telescope. You can see that it's curving. So if you think the earth is not spinning, everything above us is circling around us, but what we are not moving like it says in the Bible. Well, what about wind? Is it moving? Is wind moving? If so, why doesn't it just blow off the edge of the earth until all the air is gone? Does it just wind around in a circle on the top of the plate? Quite a while. I'm about ready to knock it off, actually, but I'm curious about this stuff. So, what about the wind, Andy? Why does the wind not blow off of the plate? What do I think the correct position on abortion is? I think the correct position for the federal government is to say it's up to the states to determine their own abortion laws. They correctly overturned Roe v. Wade because it was predicated on something that doesn't exist, namely a right to privacy. You cannot adjudicate the abortion issue via rights calculus because a true rights calculus, negative rights never come into conflict with one another. Only in the case of a pregnant mother does that occur, provided you assume the baby is human. But there's no reason not to, because stage of development isn't something we use to determine humanness. But because it can't be adjudicated via rights, it's perfectly left up into the incubators of democracy, the states, to determine for themselves. Different populations feel very differently about it and very strongly about it. Personally, I take since we can't resolve it definitively on rights, we're going to have to settle on intuitive okayness. So I think most people would say it's intuitively not abortion if somebody takes Plan B pill the day after she has sex or something. And I think most people would intuitively say that it's wrong to abort a fetus that's 9 months in, just because you change your mind the last minute. So, things that appall the conscience should not be should be made illegal. Where exactly that is, that's a tough question. It's a tough question no matter what. It's like I know that if Rachel were to get pregnant because she's on all these psych drugs that she's on, like olanzapine, Klonopin, fluoxetine, gabapentin, that she can't stop taking those drugs without going crazy. So if she were to get pregnant, I think we know what we'd have to do, but we'd try to do it as early as possible. Air moves left to right and down. It does not matter. Butterflies can fly up and down, left to right. Also, butterflies do not get affected by a so-called gravity. Gravity is pseudoscience. Okay, but about this water on top of a ball. So I don't think anybody's trying to claim that the Earth is perfectly a globe. It's got lots of ups and downs on it, right? It's bumpy. There's plenty of scoops in it where water could just sit there. It's not going to roll off the edge of the ball. Gravity is pseudoscience. So what makes us stay on the ground? So why is it that I can't jump infinitely high? What do you want to call the thing that makes it so when I jump up, I fall back down rather than go up forever? Well, I don't think butterflies can live in a vacuum, gee. No, but I know all about Admiral Byrd's story, but I'm asking a specific question. So what do you want to call the thing that makes me go back down to the ground rather than flying up forever? What do you call that? Because regardless of what kind of Earth we are on, whether it's flat or round or whatever, it is the case that if I jump up, I'll come back down to the ground and I won't float up indefinitely. So, what do we want to call that? Buoyancy and density. Okay. So, I'm more dense than air, so I stay on the ground. Okay. So, is the air pushing down on me? I want to know about buoyancy and density. I'm buoyant in water. So what you're saying is like, look, when you get in water and you swim down to the bottom of the pool, if it was gravity, you'd just be at the bottom of the pool. Instead, you float back up. But in air, you're less buoyant than air, so you just float back down to the ground. Well, why do people reach a terminal velocity when they fall out of a plane then? Well, at that point, because the speed you're hitting the air, it gets more dense. Accordingly, you have more buoyancy. So you can't go any faster than that. Okay. I mean, it is true that various things are more or less floaty is a general term for buoyancy and density, is floatiness, floatability. The atmosphere is electrostatic. There's a positive charge on Earth and a negative charge in the atmosphere. It's a closed system. Well, what does that have to do with buoyancy and density? Well, I mean, I wouldn't say I believe in gravity. I would say I understand the model of objects in space distorting the fabric of space, and so that it's not the gravity is really just curved space-time around the large object, but it doesn't really have any meaningful belief for me because I just see it as a name that's used to explain why things fall to the ground. It doesn't really matter to me whether it's because of curved space-time or buoyancy and density. It's at worst a mental shortcut to explain it, like a word shortcut to say, well, we need to account for this force, right? Like, so um, it's going to be steep climbing up this hill because not only do we have to walk with this heavy pack, but our center of gravity is going to be off. And it's going to keep trying to tip us over backwards. So in that instance, when we use the term center of gravity, we mean something specific. And we get that we might want to load our pack differently. We might want to put the heavy stuff at the top and the light stuff at the bottom so it pushes you forward, for example. Something like that. Well, that's true. I if you don't hold your breath, you don't float back up. Well, I mean, I think that this is interesting. Like, you basically what he's saying is you don't need the concept of gravity as we currently understand it as a curvature of space-time to explain the behavior of objects within a closed system of the Earth, which is more or less a closed system because that's why it retains an atmosphere, you know? I think that's fine. I suspect that we would measure everything in terms of, to some extent, relative buoyancies and densities if we're going to deal with gravity at all. Terminal velocity has to do with hitting the wind, I think. Escape velocity, though, how do you explain escape velocity? Just you're propelling, the propulsion ascribes buoyancy to the object, and it's very dense, so it needs a lot of propulsion. Well, what about things in orbit? It's just the vacuum of space makes everything buoyant in the vacuum of space? Or do you not believe in space? Let's put it this way. If all the oceans of the world are sucked around a spinning globular ball, how does a butterfly just happen to float up opposite of gravity? Okay, well, it flies. It flaps its wings. It uses its wings to grab onto the wind. But the thing is, the answer to your question about the oceans being sucked around is simple. You said it yourself, closed system. So the same reason why they're not sucked around like that is the same reason why if you jump up in an airplane, you don't go flying to the back of the airplane because you're contained within that system. If your if your thing was right here about about stuff being sucked around, the ocean being sucked around and stuff, then it would be the case that if you jumped up in an airplane, you would fly to the back of the airplane at 500 miles an hour. All right? You understand, Andy? You do get that when you're flying in an airplane and you jump up, the airplane doesn't travel 500 miles per hour and slam you into the back of the airplane, right? That's the same reason why the spinning ball doesn't suck the oceans of the world around. In fact, it's the moon that causes the tides. No, I mean, you can certainly feel G forces, but if you're claiming the Earth is a closed system, then the same reality applies. The things within that closed system are not going to feel something that's steady and consistent. And that's exactly what the Earth spinning is it doesn't speed up and slow down and jerk around. It's just steady and consistent. Just airplanes are less consistent. But I get it. You've got religious beliefs that make you want to think this stuff. But that happens sometimes. I should eat some more food. Same thing. If you go up 100 feet in the air and sit there for 2 hours, you, the air, the earth below you, etc., is all spinning together. So none of you notice the spin. Just like with the airplane. Like if you were in orbit around Earth and two spaceships that were right next to each other, going exactly the same speed in concentric orbits, and for some reason you couldn't see the Earth, let's say there were no windows on that side, and you couldn't see out the other side at all. You couldn't see out at all, except you could just see the other person. You both appear to be standing still to the other person. There'd be no feeling of motion, and since you're relative to each other, going exactly the same speed, you just both think you're just standing still. There's nothing to gauge the movement against. And there's no feeling of movement since it's a constant, slow orbit. And that's one to grow on. That last steak bit was a little bit too rare for me. Just a touch. So I'm going to try this other steak bit here. Also looks a little rare. But I need to eat something. And you know, these days I can't eat carbs, can't eat sugar. I do have some Chobani unsweetened Greek yogurt in there. I'm going to maybe eat some of that. Easy to eat. I had dental surgery last Friday. Had 4 teeth removed. And so it makes eating a little tricky. Because I have to eat over here on the right side, but I have to try to be careful to not bite with my wounds. I put some salt on this. This is perfect. So good and just and true and fine and special. It's a flavor of tremendous things. They call me Careful Q McGareful Goo. Delicious. Oh, I left the refrigerator door open. Now I'm going to try something a little crazy on the cooking front here. We'll see how it turns out. I'm using the term cooking very loosely. I'm just doing this unsweetened Greek yogurt. I'm going to get some of this feta cheese. Switch that around. Okay. Now let's see if there are any raspberries left. Yes, there is. Raspberries, if you don't know, have less sugar in them than other kinds of fruit. Berries in general do. This one's really good. gotta examine your berry, because they can be pretty scary. I know what you're saying, Eric. That's too many berries. Maybe, maybe not. We're going to squish these up with our feta cheese and unsweetened Greek yogurt for a festive delight. Well, this is not going to be sweet, despite the berries, which are really quite tart, as is the yogurt. But I think the feta cheese is going to put an interesting mixture into the quite good. And, you know, supposedly very healthy. Along with this steak here. I never believed it. I thought all that dietary stuff was bullshit. Just eat whatever you want. Fuck. That was my motto. Turns out, it's not bullshit. Now I have the diabetes. Or something like it. You know what? Just let the earth be whatever it wants, okay? There's nothing wrong with it being trans-shapal. God, you guys are such bigots. Good. I want Rachel to try a bite of this. I don't think she's really eating anything today. I like it a lot. She kind of warned me when I got the Greek yogurt that she said it was an acquired taste or something. Hi.
Hi.
I want you to taste my taste creation.
What is that?
It's Greek yogurt, raspberries, and feta cheese.
Oh, dang, that sounds good.
It is really good.
Pretty good,
Really
right?
good. I'm sorry that I gave Greek yogurt such a bad name in the grocery store.
Oh, well, you know, it's turned out to be delicious, actually.
I'm really glad. A lot of people don't like it.
Tangy.
Yeah.
I like tangy things. Look at me being all healthy with the food. Good, too. But most of all, it puts some calories in my belly so that I'm not starving to death. I could also eat a couple of salamis and a couple of regular cheeses, because this is not carbs. It's what's known as meat. And this stuff here is a little something they call cheese. Yeah, it's bad. You're a little late to the topic party, though. Mm. Well, yeah, R.I.P. Anyhow, I think this stream's gone on long enough. I'm gonna wrap it up like a Christmas present. Thank you all for being here. I love you all so very, very much. And I think you're cute as a button. Have a good night.